Welcome to Wager Talks Last Call. I'm Kelly Stewart. You guys might know me as Kelly in Vegas. We have a trio of Wager Talk handicappers coming on today. Carmine Bianco to talk the Euro quarterfinals. Of course, some Copa America as well. Rob Veno is coming in second to hit on the WNBA games. And bat and clean up, Bryan Leonard. And we are going to take all of your MLB questions. We are streaming live on 7 different platforms today. That's right. So if you have a comment, you have a question, you have a concern, feel free to drop it in your perspective chat and we'll try to get to it. Let's bring in Carmine Bianco at Carmine Bianco WT on social media. Carmine, our resident soccer handicapper. Let's talk some Euros.
Let's talk some Euros. We've already seen a couple of the quarterfinals played on Friday. Both decided in extra time and penalty kicks. What a way to decide who moves on in a competition with penalty kicks. It's a little crazy. And we could see it today again, too, at least in the first game. The first game that goes today at noon is England and Switzerland. But for the sake of this show, I wanted to give you guys a little extra time. So we're going to talk Netherlands and Turkey in this one. And of the 4 games, the 4 quarterfinal games, I came into the quarterfinals thinking of the 4 games, this is likely the game, the Netherlands-Turkey one at 3 p.m. today, that is going to have the most scoring in it. And thus far, you look at France and Portugal, scoreless through 90 minutes and extra time. The Spain one was 1-1 after 90 minutes, so that was another under as well, too. And there's not going to be many goals in the England one that I see, but this is the one, Netherlands and Turkey, and it's an XG thing. As far as totals go, I've pivoted, Kelly, in this tournament thus far, both this one and Copa America. Early on, sides weren't going as well as I wanted to. A little bit of a profit, not a lot of profit. I pivoted to totals because I was using an XG formula of what you can find online, and then my own XG as well too. And 15, 2, and 3 run, 20 totals thus far, 15 winners, 3 pushes. So I'm pretty happy about that. And this is one where we see goals thus far through 4 games. Turkey's playing extremely well. They've created 6.1 expected goals, scoring 7. They've conceded 7.6 XG, which means that as much as they're scoring, they're allowing a lot of teams to attack against them. They're allowing goals against. They just seem to be on the right side of the decision. It's going to be a little tougher today. Netherlands is a very good attacking team, a team that can counterattack when needed to be. And Netherlands themselves created 6.5 XG thus far, scoring 7 goals through 4 games, conceding 4.2 XG as well, too. This game shapes up. My XG number for this one is a final score of 2.3 to 1.0 as far as XG goes for Netherlands. So it is forecasting more than 3 goals scored in this game, and it's forecasting both teams to score. And you can get the both teams to score, and that's the play I want to talk about. Both teams to score in this game at minus 125. You eliminate the total completely out of it because the total is at 2.75, which is, for novices, it's a split Asian line, which means that if you bet $100 on 2.75 and you take the over, $50 is on 2.5, $50 is on 3. So they would need to score 4 in order for you to cash both bets. If they score 3, you push 1 and you win the other. And of course, if they only score 2 in the game, you lose both. I want to take the total out of the equation here. I think both teams are going to find the net today. If it's 1-1 after 90 minutes, so be it. We cash our ticket. That's all that really matters. So so both teams to score minus 125 is the free play on this Netherlands game.
Carmine, as he mentioned, up 33 units, 88% winning percentage since June 14th. That was when the Euro started. 15, 2 and 3, hell of a run. Carmine has a 5% MLS play up for tonight at wagertalk.com. Carmine, let's get into some of those Copa America quarterfinals.
Yep. I'm still excited about last night's game. Canada pulling the shocker and beating Venezuela at AT&T Stadium in Texas. They win that game in penalty kicks, and they'll now face a team they faced on match day 1 of this Copa America, Argentina and Lionel Messi. So a return date on Tuesday. We'll see how Canada does in that one. and I'll probably talk about that one on Wager Talk today. But as far as this one goes, the second favorite to win this tournament before it started was Brazil. They were plus 225. Argentina were the favorites at plus 165. And they're facing Uruguay today. The price in this game is pretty much all plus prices across the board. Brazil, the favorites at plus 165. The draw is plus 206. Uruguay is plus 191. So it's essentially, it is a pick 'em on the two-way line as well to the handicap, which you could take. If you like a side, you could take either one of the sides. And if it's tied after 90 minutes, your bet is a push, so you don't have to pick the outright winner. The Copa America is different than the Euros in that as far as everything until the finals, if the game is tied after 90 minutes, there is no extra time. They go straight to penalty kicks. They don't play the 2 15-minute halves of extra time. The one thing here is when you look at these teams from the outside looking in, you look at it and Brazil is completely held over Uruguay every time they've played. At least their last 13 games, Brazil 9 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. But that 1 loss was the last time they met back in October in Uruguay for World Cup qualifying in South America, which is obviously still going on. Uruguay came away with a 2-0 win in that one. Darwin Nunez was the man of the match there, and he's been playing well in this Copa America as well too. He had a goal and assist in that one. And this is a Brazil team that just does not have, if you're watching them, you'll understand what I mean by this. They don't have the swagger of Brazil teams of years past. Ronaldinho, one of the greatest Brazilians of all time, came out and said, I'm not going to wear the shirt. I'm not going to wear the flag. I'm not going to cheer for this team. We don't play the Brazilian style anymore. And they haven't in this tournament. And they've struggled for the most part in this event. A big miss for them tonight. They're missing Vinny Jr., the Real Madrid striker, picked up a yellow card. He's out. He's suspended for tonight's game, which hurts that offense and that attack that much more. So where am I going here, Kel? I'm going with the under. The under is the play here. The under is at 2.25 goals. Again, it's a split line. So that means if you're taking the under, you're betting $100, it's split between 2.5 and $50 on each. Any result that 0-0, 1-0 for either side, you're winning that bet. If it's 2-0 or 1-1 and goes to if it's 1-1 and goes to penalty kicks, you still win. All bets are graded on 90 minutes and injury time, not the final score of the game if there's extra time or penalty kicks. The under is the best bet here in this one. I think it is. Uruguay's playing extremely well. Brazil's very good defensively. This is going to be a tight one throughout, and we haven't seen a lot of scoring in Copa America games as it is. And it's normally, if it's one of the South American teams playing one of the CONCACAF teams, that they win by sort of crooked score lines. I don't see that here. You got 2 very good teams, familiar with themselves, and have played with their starting lineups back in October, as I mentioned in World Cup qualifying. The under has to be the play here. So under 2.25 is the free play for the show.
Let's hope Carmine Bianco can stay hot. Both teams to score in Netherlands, Turkey, minus 125. Free play on the under 2.25 in Uruguay, Brazil. Carmine, we have a couple questions from the chat I want to get to here really quickly just before we let you go. The first one, Childhood Greats, Switzerland halftime money line and Turkey halftime money line is his parlay of the day. I always find this really funny how you can do this in multiple sports now, right? Because when I first came into sports betting, this was not really a thing, but it seems to be really popular. What are your thoughts on Switzerland? Let's just say it's 1-0 at halftime, and then it ends up being 2-1. You cash your both teams to score. Turkey wins the game, but Switzerland is up early.
Yeah, the Switzerland one is going to be a tough one. Only because like England and Gareth Southgate, the manager of England, Kel, is on the hot seat. This team is not playing the style that fans of the Three Lions want them to play. They have a very good midfield, a good back line, and some very good attacking forwards in Saka, Harry Kane, Phil Foden. And they just haven't put it together. They're kind of like France. France have yet to score, just to go off on a bit of a tangent. France have yet to score a goal in open play. They've only scored 3 goals and they're into the semifinals. One was via a penalty, 2 were own goals where defenders scored into their own nets. France does not have a goal in open play as of yet. And you look at England, they've struggled as well too. They were a minute from being eliminated from this tournament. Jude Bellingham, with a kick in the 95th minute, saves them, sends it to extra time, and then Harry Kane wins it in extra time 2-1. So they haven't been playing their best, but the second half and the extra time of that game, I saw a lot of positives out of this Three Lions team, and I think England, if they're going to play their best, it's going to come today at noon. With this game starts in about 45 minutes. I think we see their best performance. Switzerland's been very good. They beat Italy in the round of 16, but I don't think that was a very big win because the Italians were they're weaponless in this whole tournament. They could not score. It was one of the things I stated in our previous show, Kel, is that I have no idea who can score for Italy, which is why I didn't think that they would make it very far in the tournament. They also struggled. Switzerland also struggled in a couple of games against Scotland to score. Against Germany, they were both 1-1 draws in those ones. They did win their first game against Hungary, but they're playing a much better team. This is a step up for Switzerland. And if you can get, to answer the question for the person asking about Switzerland first half, if you can get a quarter goal or even a half goal, and you're probably going to have to attach a lot of juice to that, I would probably take it because it could be a game that is scoreless at halftime, and then England eventually goes on to win. But I think England's probably the right play today in this one. There was a lot of positive signs from them. I think they're going to play much better today. We'll see if that comes to fruition, because if they get knocked out today, Gareth Southgate, it'll probably be on a different plane heading back to the UK. And as far as the Netherlands one, Netherlands have created 3 XG thus far in the first half. Turkey 2.5. Both teams are scoring in the first half. These are high numbers for teams that have only played 4 games thus far, and 2 of the higher ones behind only Spain and Germany. But Spain and Germany have played 1 extra game, which was yesterday, of course. So those numbers are a bit skewed. Turkey and Netherlands have some very high XG numbers, and we'll see if that holds true today. I would probably look at the first half over in the Netherlands game. I believe it is at 1 juiced minus 130, because I think we see at least 1, possibly 2 goals. And as you stated, Kelly, 1 at halftime of the Turkey game would be absolutely fantastic.
All right. Carmine has a 5% play in the MLS up tonight. He has been absolutely crushing WT.buzz/CB. 15-2-3 with his soccer totals since June 14th. That is the start of the Euros. He gave you guys 2 more totals today. So thank you guys to Carmine. Make sure you guys are following him on all your social channels at Carmine Bianco WT. Let's bring in Rob Veno. We're going to talk some WNBA now. Then we'll back clean up here with Bryan Leonard. Take your MLB questions. If you have a question for Rob in regards to the WNBA, drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Rob, it's been a while since I've got to do some videos with you, but you've been nice and red hot in the WNBA. So I'm curious to hear who you like today.
Yeah, the WNBA has been good, Kelly. Before I even start, kudos. I mean, I'm number 2 at Wager Talk in profit simply because our colleague Ronald Kabang has been so red hot. And I know you know that in my case, handicapping WNBA for the first season, I learned a lot from our good buddy Ski Profit, who has showed me the way here. So it's been good. It plays a little truer to form than the NBA. And we're going to talk about a couple here and some that are on the move. I'll start with the New York, Indiana game, which is going to be the most popular game of the day, obviously. Caitlin Clark, as everybody knows, has drawn a huge audience to this league. These teams, they've met 3 times so far this season. And in those games, you find a lot of similarities here, Kelly. They played very early in the season, way back in May. It was like the second or third game for both of these teams. Liberty win 102-66 on the road, complete blowout. Liberty come back 2 days later at home, win by 11, 91-80. Then they meet again on June 2nd, and another 36-point win for the New York Liberty, 104-68. So what you can take from that is these final score totals have kind of been in the same little niche range here. All three have been played at 168, 171, and 172. Thus, the huge line movement on the total that we've seen today. I think right before we came on here, I checked and saw 175.5, which is a little higher than what these teams have played. And it's a little higher than what the previous three meetings closed at. New York has scored 91 or more in all three of these games, twice over 100 points, as I mentioned. Interesting there, Kelly, because, when you're playing 36-point blowouts, generally in basketball and even in football, we all fear that the team leading is going to take their foot off the gas. But the Liberty hasn't really done that in blowout situations against this particular team. I could narrow this down to first halves where these three games have all been decided. First half, Liberty has destroyed Indiana all three times. Plus 17 the first time around, 48-31 at halftime. Plus 20 second time around, 57-37 at half. And then another plus 18, 55-37. All high scoring halves by the Liberty. All huge blowouts for the Liberty. The scheduling here, I don't know if it makes a huge amount of difference for either, but I would sort of lean toward the New York Liberty in this situation. They both have 3 days rest, negates each other. However, the Fever come off a 5-game road trip, first game back home. In the NBA, we use that as an angle. First game back off a long road trip. WNBA, I don't have a big enough sample size to know if it's a good way to go or to apply or not, but it does seem to factor in a little bit, especially since these teams are closing toward the Olympic break right now. For those who don't know, the WNBA will take a 3-week hiatus for the Olympic Games because a lot of their players are involved. New York's only 2-5 against the spread. So if you're looking at side here, and I know New York has blown them out all 3 times, so that would be the counter argument, but they are only 2-5 against the spread their last 7 games. But their offense has been absolutely clicking. 89 or more scored by the Liberty in 7 of their last 9. Combine that with the fact that Indiana is 14-5 to the over in their last 19 games. And by the way, that was 14-2 until they went on an 0-3 under run to end this most recent road trip. I think in the end, I would look at it like this. The Liberty, and in all transparency, I played the game at over 91.5. It's now up to 93.5. It's why I've reduced it all the way down to a free play for Wager Talk, people who visit Wager Talk today. The Liberty have the best offensive rating in the league by far. And the Fever are the worst defensive rated team by far. And the Liberty has shown us that they have no problem scoring against this team. So I still think 93.5 has a little bit of wiggle room here. Indiana's allowed between 89 and 98, I think, in 7 of their last 9. So they're not good defensively. I like it better at the lower price. But again, the situation, the matchup, the number's gotten higher. But I still, again, think there might be a little bit of wiggle room. I do have a best bet on this game, which features another portion of this game. This one I'm giving here is the free play. But once again, I think Liberty team total over 93.5 is worth a look.
All right, Rob, you said, what do you have on this game? Give me your little promo spiel, because I apologize, I do not have it written down.
WNBA, for those viewing here and that will view 26 and 16, 25 and 16, I think, plus 26 units on the season is what the total is. Ranks number 2 over at Wager Talk. We're going to have a 3% play on this particular game, which goes in a couple of hours here. It would have been, I would have rated the team total higher, but I had to downgrade it simply because of the movement in the line. And just really quick here, Kelly, let me use this as just a general statement. I know we like to give a lot of, a general info to folks that are just beginning betting. When you're betting the WNBA, it's kind of important to get in on these overnights because these lines swing more than any I've seen in quite some time. They'll jump like we see today in this Liberty game. So we've been trying to advance bet these games so that you get the better number. We know closing line value sometimes ends up in that garbage can, but it's always good to be on that side.
Yes, it is. Very good advice from Rob. And don't let him discredit himself. Ronald Kabang has been on fire. And that is the only reason why Rob Veno is appearing in second place. Him, Ski Profit, and Kabang always kicking ass in the WNBA. I love tailing these guys. William Bennett wants to know if there's a player combination with points, rebounds, maybe assists that you've seen out there for Caitlin Clark.
I don't get involved in WNBA props, but I will say this where Caitlin is concerned, just in viewing the last couple of games. She looks a little fatigued, Kelly. I have to say she's played a lot of basketball, we all know, in the last 6 months. And recently, it just looks like there's a little bit of tiredness to her game. She can probably use the break that's coming up for her. I think her teammates don't help her out in a lot of situations where assists are concerned. So I would probably shy away. But again, I'm really not the guy to come to where WNBA props are concerned because I just don't get involved.
No, you're right, though. I mean, Caitlin just, basically went down to the wire in the women's basketball tournament. Then now she's getting right into it. She definitely has tired legs, and she doesn't have a lot of people, as you mentioned, to help play defense, to help protect her. She's been getting, a welcoming to the professional sports league. Let's go over to the Washington Mystics and the Minnesota Lynx. I know you have a free play in this one.
Yeah, and this one's a little difficult, Kelly, because of the injury report, right? And the WNBA injury report has been a little bit steadier than the NBA, but as we get closer to this break, it's becoming a little funkier and hard to judge. Doing an awful lot of those NBA tip-off shows, we often at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 4:30 Eastern time, still don't know how NBA lineups are going to end up. I still don't really know how this one's going to line up. But for the Mystics, Stephanie Dolson, their starting center, ex-UConn player, has been a very good addition to the starting lineup, and she did not play last game. They get beat by 21 without her. For the Minnesota Lynx, another UConn grad, Nafisha Collier, has been their best all-around player, and she's questionable at this point in time. So you see a little bouncing back and forth here in this line. Maybe somebody in the know who knows who's going to go and who's not, but I think there's an illness running through the locker room with the Mystics, so the Stephanie Dolson situation could keep her out again. So it makes it difficult to play, but I would say this. Washington is basically an underdog every single game because they're one of the worst teams in the league, but they do fight. They're 7-3, I believe, against the spread on the road, mainly because they get an awful lot of points from the odds makers. But they're a one-trick pony. They really, about 6-8 games into the season, because their particular injury list has been so deep this season, they kind of went to threes are better than twos theory. Shoot a lot of threes. As I mentioned, kind of a one-trick pony, but they are number 2 in the league in three-point percentage. That's good for them. What's bad for them is Minnesota's the number 1 three-point defense in the league. So if that gets negated here, I find it difficult to see where Washington's going to come up with points against this Lynx defense. Not only are they the best three-point percentage defense, they're the best overall defensive rating in the league. And Washington team total here is listed at 74.5. It seems high against the Lynx. I don't think Washington can get to 75. So as a free play today, I think the best way to look is at the Mystics under. The Lynx also have a little bit of motivation here. They're on a 1-3 string after being, I think, in second place in this league. They've been one of the 4 best teams all season long. But again, the fatigue might be settling in for some of these teams. But Lynx at home here after losing the other night to Connecticut, a game in which they had a 10-point lead. I think they'll be motivated. And if there's one thing you can count on with them, it's always their defense. So for me, it would be a look on the Mystics team total under 74.5.
All right, quick question for me, because I always find it difficult to bet in game. You've got to be really on top of it, Veno. But when you have these late injuries, you hear these rumors about a bug going around the locker room, things like that. Do you recommend maybe people try to find a more advantageous number in game? Also, you're going to get more information. You're going to see who the starting 5 is once that first tip off, kind of go from there. Any advice on live betting the WNBA?
Yeah, it's probably a good way to go, Kelly. Obviously, in our profession here, we're asked to recommend plays well in advance of start time. And we don't always, I mean, we have the information that we're given at the time. In fact, the other day in the comment section on a WNBA video I did, I got called an unreliable source because at the time of the video, I had two doubtfuls that wound up playing. So it is always better, I think, in these types of situations, as you mentioned, maybe look for an in-game or wait, if you can wait up until tip and see. The problem then again is the line movement that occurs as soon as these things are announced. So maybe as I think this out with you and talk it out, I think probably in-game is the best way to go because you can see as the game goes where the line adjusts and play it that way. It's a little more difficult 5 minutes till tip, an injury gets announced, the line goes berserk and you get the wrong end of it. So you do have to have a quick trigger finger in that in-game betting, though. That's for sure.
You definitely do, and I get caught up too often watching the game. He's Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on your social media channels, wt.buzz/RV. You can get his play that is up in the first game, that is the New York Liberty and Indiana Fever, in addition to his free plays that he gave out here on the show. Thank you to Rob. Make sure you guys head over to wagertalk.com and see what he's got up to offer. Let's bring in Bryan Leonard. We're going to talk some MLB for the last half hour of the show. If you guys have any MLB-related questions for today's slate, drop them in the chat. Bryan Leonard, I haven't seen you in a while either. I mean, I know that I've been slacking off this summer, and I don't do much baseball, but great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you and three of my favorite people on the same show here, so this will work out great. Yeah, baseball season's going really well. We're off a 5% play yesterday on the Philadelphia Phillies. Not too many people are playing an underdog in a 5% play, but a nice payoff for us yesterday. Been red hot. Number one through beginning of May all the way through now in Major League Baseball net profit. Finished last year number 3 in baseball net profit. So hopefully we can bring you some winners today.
I love winners. Yes, I was on the Phillies with you yesterday. That was a nice, we'll call it an easy one for an underdog cashing outright. I usually get stuck having to sweat some of those. A couple of games you want to touch on first. We've got the Orioles at the A's. And as somebody, as I mentioned, who doesn't follow a lot of baseball, I do bet it on occasion and I'll score watch. But we all know how bad the Oakland A's are, soon to be the Las Vegas A's. And right now the Orioles are absolutely surging. On the Wager Talk odds screen, they're well over a $1.60 favorite. This is where I get a little apprehensive, Bryan Leonard. You're going to have to tell me why you think I should be laying this type of juice with the Orioles.
Yeah, normally I look to play the underdogs, but I think there's some value here on Baltimore. Cade Povich, rookie starter for them going today. He hasn't dazzled with his dominance so far in his young career with a lowly 14.9 strikeout percentage. Normally, when you've got a young guy coming up, he dazzles with his fastball and gets a lot of strikeouts. Everybody gets excited about him, but he hasn't been able to do that. But he has plenty of red in his savant profile, which is what we want to see. That breaks down all of his adjusted numbers, all of the advanced numbers that these pitchers are throwing from a pitch standpoint. So that's the basis of what I do at a lot of my handicapping. I try to take advantage of guys that are doing very well and fade guys who are struggling in the base numbers. And he's really kept the opposition off balance. He's got an excellent 86.6 average exit velocity, along with a 28.2 hard hit rate. That's tremendous. His expected batting average against is only 200. Each of those results rank in the 90th percentile or better in the league. So he's a guy right now, even though his numbers have not been great so far for Baltimore, he's a guy that we want to bet on. And unfortunately, Luis Medina, he came on the scene as a wild throwing righty, big fastball numbers, big strikeout potential. But if you take a look at his first 2 seasons now, he's got a 4-13 record, 5.28 ERA, 1.51 WHIP. While his numbers look bad on the surface, keep in mind, half his games are played here in Oakland, which is one of the best, if not the best, pitcher's park in Major League Baseball. A lot of foul territory. Ball doesn't travel that well here. And he's still got those outrageous numbers. And when you look at the offenses, obviously, is a big differential here. When it comes to offense, the Orioles rank second in baseball behind the Dodgers in WRC plus at 119. Oakland enters play at 94. So that means we've got a Baltimore advantage here of 25% better than Oakland in this game. And that's a big number when it comes to your WRC plus, 25% better. Cheap number in our eyes here with Baltimore. I kind of liked them yesterday, but I didn't want to lay that road favorite number, and they shut Oakland down. I think they do so again here. I think they'll have a big positive offensive day going against Medina, who has really not conquered this level. You see a lot of these guys that are basically quad A pitchers. They do pretty well in the minors, and then they get up in the majors and they just can't handle it. But I like Baltimore here going against Oakland. I think the number's cheap.
Bryan, about a decade ago, not to age myself too much, I tried to learn how to handicap Major League Baseball, and I read the book Trading Bases, and I talked to you, and I talked to Dave Koken, and I ultimately just settled on, I'm just going to tell you guys instead of trying to do this work myself, because I had other things that interested me more as far as a handicapping perspective. But one of the things that always resonated with me was laying the run line. But now that we've seen how the extra innings rules have changed, now we have pitching clocks, now we have all of these different metrics that have started to evolve over the last decade. What are your thoughts on laying 1.5 with some of these favorites, particularly on the road, as opposed to someone like me who's just a little risk adverse? Minus 170 kind of makes my stomach feel a little uneasy.
I don't like to lay the 1.5. I try to put myself in the position of the players. You ask any Major League Baseball player before the game starts, would you be happy to win this game by 1? They would be thrilled. And that's the thing you have to worry about when you're laying the 1.5. Many times, how many games have we seen where a team's got a 2-run lead, first guy gets on base, they don't care about him. They let him steal second. Sometimes they let him steal third if he's a really good base runner. They don't care about that first run. So all of a sudden, that first guy gets on, and they don't care at all. They want to play to run the double play, but if that doesn't happen, he gets to second base. Oh, well, that run doesn't mean anything. And then all of a sudden, you end up with your team winning by 1 run because they don't care to win by more than 1 run. That's why I don't lay the 1.5. Now, I will take the 1.5 once in a while. I play a lot of ugly dogs, a lot of teams that nobody wants, the White Sox, Miami, those kind of teams. And especially when you're in a situation like Miami's a good pitching ballpark, where your total's in like the 7 range, 7, 8, 7.5. That 1.5 from the home team, if you can get them at a good number, like an even number, as opposed to plus 170 or something on the dog, that's something I will take a look at because we've lost a lot of those 1-run games. In fact, I think yesterday I lost 3 1-run games, and it happens in baseball. That's just what happens, and the bullpens blow it sometimes. You've got to be prepared. But that's why I don't lay the 1.5. I'd much rather take the 1.5 in a Major League Baseball game.
All right. Sorry, Paco. I hijacked your question with a question of my own. Paco wants to know what to do with Garrett Cole. No way he should be priced this high over the Red Sox today. You know, Bryan, I always laugh. Ariel Epstein, good friend of mine, does a lot of stuff with MLB, including MLB Network, and she always does a fishy line. And when I saw this one, when I opened up the Wager Talk on screen, I thought, oh boy. Again, I don't follow a lot, but you have to lay almost $2 with Garrett Cole. Talk to me about this one.
That is the problem, but a bigger problem is the Yankees are on a losing streak. Once again, yesterday, I seem to be on the Yankees off this losing streak too, one of the few teams I haven't gotten right. But they blew a lead in the 9th inning once again and lose an extra innings to Boston. Garrett Cole has been pretty good so far. He's not the same as he was before his injury. But he had one bad start. The other starts, he's been pretty good, but he still hasn't been classic Garrett Cole. And he struggled in his history against Boston. Boston seems to hit him pretty well. So that's one of those lines that, you know, I can't play New York at this price, regardless of who other starters are on the mound here against Boston. Now, when Kowski is going, this would probably be more of a bullpen game for Boston. And you know, normally that's somebody you want to go against, but not in this price range. The way New York is playing and the way the fans are getting on already, you know, they're a team clearly on their way to the playoffs, and yet the fans are freaking out when you lose 4 or 5 games, and that's what's going on with the Yankees. So if the fans are feeling that way, deep down, I think some of the players are feeling that way too. So they're playing a big rival in Boston. Too much pressure on New York for me to want to play them here. Line's too high. You'd be dog or nothing for me.
All right, we have another question from the chat. Rob Ryder wants to say something, and that's because he feels terrible. Who wants to lay minus 150 with the awful Chicago White Sox? But there's no way you can take the Marlins, right, Bryan Leonard? I mean, as the resident White Sox fan, I think you do take the White Sox here because last time I checked, they are 5-0 as a favorite in the last 5. That's the spot to take them. You don't want to take them any other time, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing Wager Talk yesterday, and Teddy mentioned a problem with the White Sox playing Miami. He goes, "How can you back Miami when they stink?" And I said, "Well, usually when you've got bad teams that are favorites, they actually are favorites for a reason. They do very well." You mentioned Chicago playing very well in that. Well, the thing is, when they're favored, chances are Garrett Crochet is there on the mound, and that's who they get today. This could be his last start for the White Sox. Is they've already come out and said they're looking to trade him before the trade deadline at the end of the month here. So they could be somewhat here where if he goes into the game, we might get a shorter version of Crochet here, knowing that they don't want him to get hurt. That is a concern here when you're laying that big number on the road. But this Miami offense has struggled. White Sox offense has struggled. 2 bad offenses, and the line's telling you that. Total of 7. I'm seeing minus 27 at one of the offshore sports books here at the Wager Talk line service. So it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'd prefer the first 5. You're going to pay a little bit more for Crochet, but you get him in the first 5, and they'll let him go 5. I just don't think they're going to let him go much longer than that. But he's been phenomenal all season long. I don't like to bet against him, and I haven't very often, luckily. But that's the way I would go here. He's just such a dominant pitcher. He could be the best pitcher in baseball so far this year, and he's going against this lousy Miami offense. So it would be Chicago or nothing for me.
I would tend to agree with Bryan Leonard once again there. Bryan, you got another juicy underdog for us here in the other game that you wanted to hit on. Guys, don't forget, if you have a question for Bryan, you have to drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I can't read your minds. Kansas City Royals at the Colorado Rockies. Nice underdog price here with the home team there at Coors Field. Bryan, talk me in to taking Colorado here.
This is a game I've kind of circled, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. Seth Lugo is having a career year for the Royals. He was an excellent signing for Kansas City, as he fits this Hold'em Stadium at Kansas City perfectly. He's a fly ball pitcher in a home run crushing ballpark. They don't give up a lot of home runs in Kansas City. The ball doesn't travel. Unfortunately, today, he's playing in quite the opposite situation in the altitude of Denver, where the ball flies further, and it's also a bad situation for a fly ball pitcher, as this is the biggest outfield in the majors. So when you're looking for a good hitting game, this is where you play in Colorado. And when you give up a lot of fly balls, especially as a sizable road favorite here, that's a concern. You're looking at his advanced stats. He's also due for some negative regression. He's been phenomenal this year, like as I mentioned, having a career year. But his ERA is a sparkling 2.17, yet his expected ERA is 3.72. 1.5 runs worse than what he's accomplished so far this year. So there is negative regression coming. And I got a feeling it's coming today in Colorado. Now, Austin Gomber, he takes the mound for the host. And we all know what we're going to get when Gomber takes the mound. He's an innings eater, and he has good extension, but he doesn't walk many batters. Other than that, he doesn't have the talent of Lugo, but he does have a ton of experience on this mound. So I give him the advantage here. Take a look at the offenses. Kansas City's got a WRC plus of 14% better than the Rockies. But that offensive edge is not going to be that impressive here, as they're still 5% worse offensively than league average in Major League Baseball. Kansas City's a team that wins by pitching. Their pitching rotation has been phenomenal this year. They're not that good of a hitting team, so expect them to come in here to Colorado and break out. I'm not buying it. It didn't happen yesterday, unfortunately, for Kansas City as they blew that game as it went late. So I think there's nice value here on the Rockies, who play much better at home than on the road. And, they talk about it in the fantasy standpoint is the rocky road. You don't want to play them on the road. You want to play them at home. That's what we're getting today with Colorado. I just think the pitching matchup with Lugo going to a place where fly balls are going to hurt them is definitely going to be a consideration in this final on this one.
At B Leonard Sports, I had to think about that for a second. It's hard for me to remember everybody's social media handles. This is why you're supposed to take notes, Kelly, even if it is early there on the West Coast. Brian, I'm waiting to see if we get any more questions from the chat for you. Andrew G, just fade the Blue Jays every game and you'll be fine by the end. Thoughts on that one? I mean, I could work for, a few game stretch here, right, Brian?
Well, they're also playing Seattle, who's been a major fade as of late also. And yeah, I wish I had taken his thought process in mind, because as I mentioned, the Yankees are a team that I haven't done well on, and Toronto's also a team I haven't done well on. So there's no way I'll be on Toronto in this one. Rodriguez came out and finally played a good game his last time he started. In fact, Toronto's taking money right now, and they're actually turning into a slight favorite at Seattle. So somebody likes Toronto in this matchup. Hancock's going for Seattle. He's been a guy that's bounced back and forth from the minors in his young career. Seattle, as I mentioned, just about every time I'm on a show, they don't hit well at home. And we're looking at a total of 8.5 here between these two teams. I would look for the under if I was to play this one at all. But I won't be on Toronto, I'll tell you that, because I've lost enough money on them for the last couple of weeks.
Do not bet list, says Bryan Leonard. I know that one all too well. David Schmidt wants to know your thoughts on laying a half a run with the Reds in the first 5.
The Cincinnati Reds.
Playing the Detroit Tigers today. Sizable favorite on the Wager Talk odds screen.
Well, the problem you have right now is Detroit hasn't announced who their starter is. So half the lines are off the board so far. Until they know who's going to be on, I can't make much of a comment. Hunter Green's been very good this year. He's finally cut back on some of his home runs. His strikeout numbers are great. Unfortunately, his last start was pretty good, but he was having some sort of a stomach problem. He was getting sick on the mound. 2 out of his last 3 starts, he got sick before the game. So I don't know if he's having some intestinal problems there. They haven't really mentioned it, but that's very rare that would happen. And right now you're in the middle of the heat all across the country. So that could be getting to him. Maybe that's what it is. But I don't want to touch him right now until I can figure out what's going on with his health, and with Detroit not knowing who the starter is. I'm afraid I'm going to have to pass on this one for now. Not enough information for me.
All right, keep an eye out to see if Detroit has a starting pitcher listed in the next maybe 15, 20 minutes. If not, I'm going to call it early. Oh, nope, we got one more. George Dimitri wants to know Twins today with Altuve news. I missed that. I'm guessing that just came out shortly. Brian, would you like to break the Altuve news and tell us if now you're a little overblown to play the Twins?
I'm looking here at the line service at Wager Talk, and about 14 minutes ago, we got an injury notice that because of his hand, he got hit by the hand. He's doubtful today. He's downgraded to not starting. He could probably come off the bench, but I probably would think that they would probably keep him out and let him rest a little bit. Yeah, it's a situation for me where you've got Hunter Brown going for Houston, and he's probably, in fact, he's pretty definitely the hottest pitcher in Major League Baseball. He really struggled early on this season. He was a guy that I liked coming the last few years in his young career, but he really struggled early on. Right now, he's been untouchable. Total in this game 7.5, and that's because you got Joe Ryan on the mound for Minnesota. 2 excellent pitchers in excellent form, coming off a game which I believe they scored 25 combined runs yesterday. So you've got a total of 7.5 there. It should be a different ball game than we saw yesterday, obviously, with the breakouts. I like both of these pitchers. If it was up to me, I'd go under that 7.5. But when you give up 25 runs, your bullpen gets a lot of use, and it did yesterday. That is my only concern. So maybe we look at the first half of this game and play that under with these two starters on the mound.
Yeah, our good friend Ralph Michaels, I was perusing X during, we'll just call it during discussions, because I like to see if there's anything fun that comes up. And he said that after teams and combined score 25 runs, and a lot of people want to take the under, just assume, okay, here we go. It's actually 50%, and historically long run sample size. Our good buddy Ralph always bringing the TNA. We appreciate him as well here on wagertalk.com. Bryan, tell me what you've got up for sale here for Saturday, Sunday. Maybe you got a week-long package. You've been seeing the board really, really well.
Yeah, as I mentioned, number one since May in Major League Baseball. Going into yesterday, I was number one in 3-day, 7-day, and 30-day. And we won our 5% play. Unfortunately, we had a couple of blow-ups in the bullpen. Cost us a huge day. But I've got 5 plays up right now, possibly more. I may add some more as the lines change and I get more information on the day. As opposed to buying the full day for $39, we've got that great special going on. I think it ends today. It could end tomorrow, but I know it's on today. Full 7 days for the July 4th special for $49. Yesterday, people paid $35 for my one play on Philadelphia. You can get 7 full days for $49. That's what I would recommend right now. That's the best, to me, that's the best deal on the entire card for any sport from any of our handicappers. $49, you can pick that up right now. Like I said, I've got 5 plays going today. I'm seeing the games very well. So when I see the games very well, I give out bigger plays, like the 5% yesterday, and give out more plays. We're 24, 6-1, 80% on our 3% and higher selections. We've got 2 of those going today. So you want to grab those for a full week and big savings, and let's continue winning for you.
I love that. Bryan Leonard, WT.buzz/BL. We're going to take one more question just for fun, just because I feel like getting a little bit more baseball knowledge. Amy Amiri wants to know, how about the over 7.5 in the Diamondbacks game? Bryan, they're taking on the Padres here. This is always interesting, right? 7.5 is kind of that. I'll say it for this. As a recreational baseball bettor, I feel like 7.5 is not the low total, right? Of 5.5, 6. It's obviously not the totals we're seeing more prevalent, 8.5, 9, 9.5. It's in that like tricky middle ground.
Well, you do have 2 quality starters on the mound in Brandon Pfaadt and Matt Waldron going in this game. And San Diego, for the most part, has been over the years more of a pitcher's park. Although this year they have given up more home runs and it's been more open, more even, as opposed to being one of the better pitcher's parks. This game yesterday was a real back and forth all game long. San Diego had that nice 5-2 lead going into the late innings. Arizona gets some home runs late, and then San Diego's got to hit a walk-off just to get that victory. So for the most part, it was an underplaying game yesterday until you got late. I prefer the under a little bit here. I like these 2 starters. They don't get major notice in the national public. Waldron's a knuckleball pitcher, and Brandon Pfaadt is a guy who did very well in the playoffs, if you remember last year. A young guy that came into the league. I mean, he was averaging like 13 strikeouts a game in the minors. It hasn't added back to that in the majors. He's not striking out like he did in the minor leagues, but there's a big difference anymore between AAA and the majors ever since the COVID year when they shut down the minor leagues. It put all the players in the minor leagues back like a year. It really cost them in their regression to their mean, because if you've looked at them, for the most part, most young pitchers have struggled in the majors this year. Even the really good ones expected to come in and do well. They have not done well. A lot of that is missing that 1 year. So I like both these pitchers, and I'm not overly enamored with either one of these offenses. We've got some key players out, so I'm going to take a look at that under in that game, and that would be my lean in this one.
All right. Thank you to Bryan Leonard at B Leonard Sports on social media. Thank you to Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on social media. And of course, Carmine Bianco WT And of course, thank you to all of you hanging out with us here on this beautiful Saturday morning, getting ready for the Euro, the Copa, WNBA, and MLB. We'll see you guys back here next week, same time, same place.